In the last 5 years, I've spoken to over 3,000 investors, and the number one problem I feel for most of them to go from where they are right now to their goal of financial freedom and having better quality choices in their life is setting a realistic property investment plan, which is why in today's video, I'm going to explain exactly how you can sit down once a year and create a really clear plan for your year, how you can check in with that plan and keep yourself accountable, as well as exactly how I use this planning exercise to create my 12-month property investment plan, as well as my 15-year plan. So if you're ready, grab a notepad or your notes on your phone and let's walk through this together. G'day there, my name's Ben Everingham and I'm the director here at Pumped on Property. Now, as I said before, the number one reason stopping most of us investors getting from where we are to where we want to be is a plan. And as simple as planning is, for some reason we make it feel more complicated or larger, or maybe we don't have enough information, or sometimes maybe we have too much information to be able to put a really good plan in place, which is why 99% of the 3,000 investors I've spoken to have come to me without a clear plan. But the beautiful thing about this video or booking a one-on-one strategy session with me over at my website, pumpedonproperty.com, is that you'll walk away from this video with complete clarity around how I do it, and therefore you can sit down, watch this video over and over again until you've got that clear plan in place for yourself. Now, the reason I wanted to record this video today is in 2008, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which enabled me to start thinking completely differently. And then in 2011 and 10, I started to actually make some money for the first time in my life that I was able to save and therefore have surplus income to put into property investing. Now, at that time, I had absolutely no plan in place. And so I went out into the Sydney marketplace and just bought whatever I could possibly afford. But had I have known what I know now, and had I have had a clear plan in place and some rules in place around what types of properties I would buy, I would be in a much better position, probably $2 to $5 million better off than I am right now, because of the mistakes that I made from not having a clear plan and therefore thinking everything in the market represented value and that any house would do the trick. So let's talk about planning and how to get started with planning. Now, the very first thing we always start with is, where are you right now? You know, where are you in your life? Where are you living? What are you doing for work? But more importantly, financially, because this is how the banks see us as investors, is where are you in terms of your current annual salary? Where is your savings at? Do you currently own any investment properties? And what is the total values, the total debt positions, as well as the total rent you're receiving? And most importantly, have you spoken to a bank manager or a mortgage broker and figured out if you can actually borrow money? If you can, happy days, then you move to the next phase. If not, then it's really important to ask the broker or the bank manager a question, which is, what do I need to do over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months to get myself into a position, whether you're just starting out or you've got many properties, to borrow money and to buy again? So it's really important to understand what you can borrow. And that's a case of really sitting down and working through those questions, as well as looking at the total income in your life and the total expenses, and then doing everything you can to drive those fixed expenses down. For example, I changed from Vodafone to Audi Mobile, and I went from paying $90 a month to paying $25 a month for my phone plan and $15 a month for my work plan. I changed from one energy supplier to another energy supplier, which gave me a much better feed in for my solar on my roof, and now my electricity is completely free. I looked at the insurance companies that I pay for my homes, for my cars. I looked at my interest rates across all of my home loans and I drove all of them down as well. I also got offset accounts to put extra money or my surplus savings against the property so they'd save money. So regardless of where you're sitting right now, I can guarantee that you can save somewhere between 10 and 50% of the fixed costs in your life. And then, you know, if it's only 6 months away from saving a bit more cash, then you might be able to tighten up the belt, you know, stop going out or delay that holiday until you get in a position to borrow some money from the bank. And then after that, obviously come back to living exactly how you want to live. So the first step is to start with where you are right now. And then from there, this is the funnest part to me. It's about really part 2, sitting down and looking at where you want to be clearly in 12 months from now and setting an intention or setting a goal, as well as where you'd like to be in the future. You know, I listened to an incredible podcast this morning with Jay Shetty and another guy who's the podcast was called Habits of High Performance People. And it was just a beautiful podcast on the way that high performance people think. And the commonality is they all have a plan. They're all focused on that plan and they know what's coming next and they know what they're working towards. So having a loose idea for the future, for example, my plan or my goal for the next 15 years is to have an incredibly peaceful, good quality of life, to spend lots of time with my family, to stay super fit and healthy through diet, spirituality, exercise, and obviously looking after myself with sleep and water and good food. And then to spend time with the people I care about, to do business and investing that I absolutely love and that's a passion for me, and as well as to contribute back. So this year we're going to give a % of the income that we earn from our business and from our clients to 2 different charities, one being St. Vincent de Paul, which helps people in trouble or in difficult financial situations in Australia, as well as Compassion Australia, which helps kids all around the world get access to education and better quality, cleaner water. Now, for me, because I know that over the next 15 years, I want to contribute more, it's part of the vision that I started to create myself. And what I wrote is, not a list of goals for the next 15 years, because that would feel super overwhelming, but just a vision for how I wanted my life, showing up with my family, spending great time with friends, contributing, looking after myself, doing great businesses, and, helping share all of this education and knowledge that I've got from, the hard lessons that I've learned the hard way through business and through this investment journey. So for you, it ultimately starts in 15 years' time with one of 2 things, or in the future. 1, choices in your life. So describe how you would like your life to be for yourself. And also, what type of income or passive income stream would you like at that time in the future as well? Now, if you're earning $80,000 a year now, your goal within 15 years should be to replace at least that amount of money. If you're earning 200K right now, then you should really be aiming to replace 150 to 200 grand a year of passive income at some point in the future, as well as living the life all the way to that future that you want to live, being present and peaceful and doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing while you're here. So we look at where you want to be 12 months from now. Now, I do less of a vision for 12 months and more of goals, something tangible, something solid. Obviously, you have different values in your life to me, but for me, my values are my family and my friends, creating wealth and contributing in a positive way to the world, and then looking after my mental, physical, and spiritual health. Now, for you, it could be completely different, but what I'd like to do is normally set 1 to 3 goals across each of those categories so that I can know where I'm heading, and then I can keep that in front of me on my desk every day and just be focused on where I'm working towards. Now, for you, it could be to save a deposit for your next investment. It could be to buy another investment. It could be to buy your first investment property, or it could be to buy your 20th. Everybody's in a different stage of their journey. But for me, in this next 12 months, for example, I'd like to add another property to my portfolio, which I'll renovate and then build a granny flat on, so that I can keep working towards creating that income that I want in the future, for that passive income stream when I don't want to do this anymore and I want to do something else with my life, or I'm burnt out, or whatever comes up in life as we go through this stuff. Now, the third thing that you want to do once you've identified where you are right now, as well as where you're going in the next 12 months and longer term, is to honestly sit down and look at what's been holding you back from achieving your property investment goals until this point. Because the reality is, I'm not financially free at the moment just through my investment properties, because of the mistakes that I've made, because of the lack of having a clear plan, because of fear, because of worrying about, was it the right time to buy or was it the right time to sell, because of analysis paralysis, and because I didn't have the right team of advisors, 6-10 years ago when I was getting started, because I'd made mistakes before or got the wrong information, like regional house and land packages, for example, of someone that I trusted. And for you, there's a whole lot of stuff stopping you achieving what you want to achieve. And sometimes it's important to just sit down, look at yourself in the mirror and go, what's actually stopping me from doing this? Is it the beliefs and the values that I've got from my childhood? Is it a non-supportive partner? Is it a lack of discipline around a savings plan? Is it because I spend too much? Is it because I earn too little, or because I'm too time poor? Is it because I can't stop looking through the internet and finding reasons to not get started, which links back to fear? Is it because I've got too much information and now I don't know which way to go and I don't have a clear plan in place? There's just a lot of reasons that stop us investors, but if you can identify what your biases are, what your fears are, and what's holding you back, then you can completely change your course and your destination. And having a clear plan, which we'll talk about in a moment, is the way to do that. The fourth thing that I do after I look at what's holding me back, some of that can sometimes be financial or lending capacity as well. I then look at my property investment goals for the next purchase. Now, I wanted to talk about and draw out some of those because for every wrong, there's a right. For every right, there's a wrong. And this is just my personal strategy based on 10 years of learning this stuff and experiencing it myself. Now, your plan might be completely different to me. For example, I don't want to develop because I'm not a specialist at subdivisions or townhouses. I like to renovate. I like to knock over and build brand new houses. I like dual income, but for you, that could be completely off base and you might be looking for shorter term gains, or you might have a higher risk profile than I do. But when I'm thinking about the next property, I'm really looking at a number of things. So that's the next property that we're looking at. Now, you could be one of two types of people. You could either be low risk or you could be high risk. Now, that's something that's important for you to understand before you get started, because if you're sitting on the low risk category, there's different types of strategies that will work for you. If you're in the high risk category, then there's much more advanced strategies where you can get much stronger gains and much higher cash flow, but with much higher risk. Now, when I'm thinking about my next property, I always then think about, is this a long-term hold or is this a short-term hold? Again, based on this decision for that next property, it's going to completely change what you try and do. Another question that I ask myself is, am I looking for capital growth or cash flow, or am I looking for both of these out of one deal, which you can absolutely get, and I've talked about in other podcasts and on other videos as well, but you can definitely get capital growth and cash flow in the right areas of Australia at the moment. But there's some other markets that if you're just targeting cash flow or types of strategies, you go for that. And same with capital growth. You know, are you looking for a dual income or a single income property? Again, completely changes your strategy and completely changes the suburbs, the markets, and the space that you want to buy in. You know, are you looking for something in a metro market, a capital city, or are you going for something regional? Now, it's important to understand these things, and I'll explain why when I get to how to use this information plus the other things I've spoken about to design a 12-month strategy and a longer term plan. You know, are you looking for houses or are you looking for units? Now, I've got very strong opinions on metro versus regional and houses versus units, as you're well aware. According to CoreLogic, metro markets in Australia have outperformed the regional markets by 86% in the last 25 years, and houses have outperformed units in Australia in the last 20 years, according to CoreLogic, by over 96%. So incredible gains if you stay on this left-hand side, based on the history. Now, history doesn't always repeat, but I think in these two instances, that's where the population growth is going, and that's what people are looking for moving forward into the future, regardless of what some other people in the market say. Now, do you want to be close to the city or the beach, or are you prepared to just sort of buy out in suburbia, well away from the sea? Or the city. Now, that's an important thing to note, again, because Michael Matusik's research has suggested that properties within 20 k's of the city or close to the beach in the last 10 years in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide have outperformed properties further away. Another question I asked is, do you want to go for an existing property or do you want to go for brand new? Now, there's positives and negatives of both, and there's times in the marketplace where one of these strategies would be more favorable. For example, if the market isn't valuing land properly, sometimes you can find a great infill block at a really good price and you can build brand new. Other times existing homes are undervalued and therefore you take that option. And then the last question that I ask is, am I looking for a low maintenance property or am I looking for a renovator? Now again, understanding where you sit across each of these property investment goals, which is the fourth part of this planning process I follow when thinking about my next property, is simple. So for example, for me, I want a low risk property. I'm looking for long-term hold. I'm looking for long-term capital growth, but I'm also looking for cash flow. I'm definitely looking for dual income property because I want that higher return. I'm only ever going to buy metro markets moving forward unless it's a very different cash flow strategy, something like boarding houses, for example, or industrial or commercial potentially, or maybe Airbnb or something like that. I'm always going to go houses because I don't want to lose that money. Personally, I always go closer to the city and the beach. I do like existing homes and brand new. It really depends on the market. And for me personally, I want low maintenance properties with renovation potential. So I want good bones, but I want them to look really ugly so that I can pick them up, clean them up in the way that I like them to be cleaned up, and I'm the one that increases the rent. I'm the one that makes the short-term equity gains. So sitting down and figuring out where you sit across each of these things, and sometimes you sit in the middle or on both sides, it's completely cool. But then, you know, how easy does this become? Low maintenance, long-term gains, capital growth and cash flow, dual income, metro houses close to the city or the beach, existing low maintenance. If you've only got a budget, let's say of $500,000 to do all of this in, then 90% of the suburbs in Australia do not fit. You know, a lot of areas don't let you do dual income, for example. A lot of areas, the land is too expensive. A lot of the metro capital cities, like Sydney and Melbourne, might be outside of your budget, or in Melbourne, they don't let you do dual income at the moment, or granny flat, so that wipes that strategy. So what we're using this for is to hyper focus where it is that you want to be and what your goals are for your next property so that you can make the best possible decision when moving forward. Now, the reason that it's important to understand where you are right now, where you want to be in 12 months, where you want to be long term, and what your vision for your life and your financial future looks like, why you want to know what's been holding you back so that you can work through those things, or at least acknowledge and accept those things, and why you want to plan for the next property is for two reasons. Now, the first reason is you really want to have a 12-month plan in place at all times. Think about the years in your life where you've achieved things that were meaningful for you and you lived a purpose-filled life. It was generally when you had a clear vision for yourself, a clear vision for that year, and you had things that you were inspired to work towards, and then the achievement of those things made you feel good inside and feel like you were living your values. So it's very important to have a 12-month plan, and then you also want to have a long-term vision for your life. Because without a vision or a purpose or something to work towards, it's easy to go through 15 years of raising kids or partying or traveling or stuffing around with your career or not starting that business. But if you have a vision and you spend a little bit of time thinking about what it is that you would love in your future, and then setting that intention, and then not knowing how the hell it's going to happen, because we don't know how it's going to happen. All we can do is set realistic goals every 12 months and slowly work towards them and link those goals to that longer term vision. So everything that I just used, I want to show you now how I use that information to actually make a decision. Now, for me, and I'm just going to use me as an example, because unless you've booked a one-on-one strategy session, this is a one-way conversation right now. But with me, you can interchange that with yourself. So my goals for the next 12 months is to buy 1 to 2 investment properties. Investments. Now, I want to create 2 houses, each with a little granny flat personally, because I love that dual income strategy. Now, I want the property to be low risk, like I said before. I want it to be a house. Now, I want it to be, when I look at a house, I want it to be at least 3 to 4 bedrooms and I want it to be on at least a 600 meter squared block plus, because the larger the block, the better the longer term gain generally. I want it to be in a metro marketplace. Now, I've just spent 7 or 8 hours looking at every single piece of information online about Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, and the metro market that I'm going to target for the next few years personally is Brisbane. Now, that might be different for you. You might be looking to target somewhere else, and that's completely fine because your 12-month goals and strategy is very different than mine. But based on who I've been following, like SQM, Heron Todd White, Core Logic, Michael Matusik, as well as Phil Anderson and Fred Harrison's work, I think that the next 5 to 8 years in Brisbane look excellent. And when I say excellent, I mean that I expect capital growth over that time, but I expect it to look like this, not like this beautiful linear made up line that never exists in property. It'll look bumpy. I expect to lose money and make money, but the overall trajectory to be up. Now, I definitely want it to be dual income, like I said. Now, for me personally, I want it to be on the beach, because after looking at Sydney and Melbourne for the last 5 years and looking through all of the suburbs and what those suburbs have done over the last 10 years, the beachside suburbs in Sydney and Melbourne have absolutely smashed the performance of the non-beachside suburbs. The reason why beaches are important to me is because people in Brisbane have valued the inner city CBD at a very high price point within 5 to 6 Ks of the city, but they have completely undervalued the beaches. And I can literally buy these beaches right now for between 15 and 20 cents in the dollar compared to the same price from the city of Sydney or Melbourne. Now, the difference between Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane is not much. Long-term, Brisbane's got the same capital growth rates, actually slightly better than Sydney and Melbourne, according to Homely over the last 50 years. If we look at the incomes, the average household income is higher in Brisbane than it is in Melbourne and just below Sydney. If we look at the long-term trends, historically, Brisbane does very well out of this second 7 or 8 years of this real estate cycle that we go through. And if we look at where people are moving right now, more Australians are moving up to southeast Queensland than any other place in Australia. In 2019, 28,000 new Australians moved up here. To put it into perspective, if you look at Australians moving to Sydney, just Australians, I'm not talking about all of the immigrants that are moving in, it was negative 8,000. So people are actually leaving Sydney by the droves and they're moving to regional markets or into Queensland. So I want a beachside property. Now, I want a renovator. And for me, my budget to buy on these beaches, if I go for a brick and tile home, I want to spend under $420,000. Now, this will mean that I'll have to be extremely patient. I'll have to door knock. I'll have to talk to every single agent every week for the year. But I'm confident if I wait it out, I'll be able to do that for myself. If I go for a non-brick home, then I'd like to be spending under $380,000. Now, you know, good quality, low maintenance homes in this suburb sell for between 450K through to 600K. I'm talking about a real shitbox that I'm looking for, because my wife's an interior designer, my brother-in-law's a builder. I have a team of people around me that I trust to actually take that really friggin' ugly duckling and turn it into something nicer. So because I went through those property investment goals before, it makes it super simple. Now, if I look at the beaches in Brisbane, the suburbs that I'm going to be buying in are between 24 and 28 kilometres from the CBD. These are the closest suburbs to Brisbane that I've identified that I can legally build a granny flat. So imagine your 12 months was now this simple. You identified that you wanted to purchase 1 to 2 investment properties. You knew that you wanted a low risk house in a metro market on a 600 square metre block with dual income potential, which means I need a 15 metre wide front in that area, on the beach, which is walking distance, which was a renovator, for $420,000 through to $380,000, and you wanted to buy it within 3 particular suburbs of Brisbane, 24 to 28 Ks from the city. Does that feel a hell of a lot simpler to you than it did before you started this planning session? And this is why a plan is so powerful, because now that I've got that plan in place, I know exactly what I want. I just have to be patient and wait for it to come into fruition and do the legwork to actually make it happen and find it. Now that is so simple for me, and that's how simple property investing can be for you, and that's how simple a 12-month plan should be. Now, in the next 12 months, you know, I also want to increase my savings and pay off debt. And I want to put myself in a position to be able to take advantage of the market in 2021 if it represents another good buying opportunity. Now, how this links to my long-term vision and how to go from here to actually creating a long-term vision is simple. I started with the long-term vision first, and then I reverse engineered it to what I need to do in the next 12 months to achieve this particular goal. Now, I'm not going to be able to go through all of my plans for my long-term vision because there's a few, but as you can see, this is the wealth creation part of my longer term vision. Now, how does 1 to 2 investment properties that give me another $50,000 to $70,000 a year contribute to my long-term wealth position? It means that I've got 2 more houses. It means that I've now got enough income across my different investment properties once I've added the granny flats and cleaned the other ones that I own up to achieve my long-term wealth position, which for me looks like 6 figures of passive income coming in for life. You know, this is just so clear for me. It means that my long-term vision is being achieved this year, which makes me feel good. And it means that I'm getting closer and closer to where I want to be. Now, after I've paid off these houses, after I've bought these houses, I then go interest only with an offset account. I use the income coming in from these properties to pay themselves off. So once I've set up the interest only home loan with the offset account in place, I put the extra income personally. This is what I do. Everybody's different, and this is certainly not advice for you, but I use the surplus rent that's coming in because I put down a 20% deposit on this. It's going to produce a passive income. I use that extra rent to go into that account. I then reduce the costs as much as possible, so I get the best possible interest rate, the best possible insurance rates, the best possible management rates, and I reduce those costs to the lowest possible cost base. I also use the tax depreciation benefits I receive from owning them every year to pay off debt faster as well. And then for me, I want to own them both outright within 15 years. So on top of using the extra income that comes in over that time to pay off debt and the depreciation, as well as reducing the cost base, I then also, choose to actively pay off a little bit more of that each month myself. So I might kick an extra $100 or $200 a week into those properties to pay them off faster, which based on my calculators online allows me to get into the position where these properties are completely debt-free within 15 years, and it enables me to continue to walk forward with confidence in my day-to-day life because they're not costing me anything. So for you, I hope this is the year that you start to pull the pieces together. I hope you realize once you break this video down that it is so simple to achieve what you want to achieve, and the reason 90% of the people that you know won't is because they don't have this plan in place. Now, planning is super simple. Identify where you want to be and write that out in a page as a bit of a story in the future, and it could be spending more time with your family, sipping on cocktails on a beach. It could be working harder. It could be changing careers. It could be spending more time with your kids or working less. It could be retiring 15, 20 years earlier than everyone you know, or traveling to Europe or Africa every year, or contributing or volunteering. You know, the choices are endless, and this is the beautiful thing about a vision for your life. You're the one, and you are the person that gets to decide what it is that you want for yourself. And then simply you work backwards. So what do I need to do this year to help me live that life in the future? And how can I live this year and be the best version of myself to become who I'm supposed to be and to put another step closer to where I know that I want to be down the line? Now, it's as simple as working through where you are, your goals for the next 12 months, what's holding you back, and then working through those things to get a plan in place to do it, whether that's saving, reducing your costs, increasing your income, buying another place, or refinancing and getting ready to buy one, or taking that step into the marketplace for the first time, and then identifying through those property investment goals your ideal strategy, your ideal state, your ideal market within that state. Hopefully it's a metro one, your ideal suburbs or area, and then your ideal property type. And spending the 1 or 2 hours it takes to do these things will completely change your life. Instead of living in the future like 90% of people do, I check in with this once a year. I literally check in with this about once every 3 months, and the rest of the time I'm just living my life in the present moment and moving towards where I want to be. So if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel. If you haven't had a strategy session with me, please jump over to www.pumpedonproperty.com and click the free strategy session button. Please, these strategy sessions are extremely rare. They book out weeks and weeks in advance. We only take on a small number of clients each month. If you're just talking about getting a plan in place, use this video to do it. If you're in a position where you've got a little bit of money or equity in the bank and you seriously want to buy a property in the next 12 months, then I'd love to spend some time with you during that session to, help you get clearer on these things, and then you can walk away and smash it on your own, or you might be able to become one of those small number of people that we work with each month, and we can walk through this journey over the next 15 years together and kick some ass. I wish you guys all the best. Please subscribe, give it a thumbs up. In the comments, it'd be awesome to hear what your goals are for the next 12 months, how you see your life in the future so that we can inspire each other, we can lift each other. Let's keep the hate away from this stuff and let's actually support each other and achieve what we want to do together. I wish you all the best for this year. I'm so excited about it. I get to buy some property again. Have a good one.